Thank you for taking time out with PSOA. We have the Great Plains Athletic Conference Training Tape number 4, created for our officials working on the field, our coaching staffs, our players, and the spectators of the Great Plains Athletic Conference. Once again with us, we have Big Ten official Monty Tilgener. Monty, from the film that you saw last week, what are the things that we have improved on the most? And using this training tape, what do you think we could improve on in week 5?
Yeah, it seems like our decision making is just getting a little more solid. And I think that's coming from, not only these training tapes, but just good pre-games and good discussions by our officials and good leadership by our referees. And really we just want that to continue. It's something we need to continue to work on each week. We need to try to strive to get better each and every week.
And that is the purpose of these training tapes. So let's start with play number 1. We always like to include a potential replay / challenge situation. So we have a line to gain, and we're going to go to the sideline view to talk about the replay on this type of play. So we have replay information, and we're going to let this play out. We have the ball carrier running, advancing, reaching out, and trying to make that line to gain. And then the most important part is we have the officials coming onto the field in 2 different locations. So from a coaching perspective, this is going to bring doubt into my mind as a coach. So Monty, we'll go back, first talk about the ruling on the field, how to get it correct, and then we'll stop it at the point of the most important. What would we be able to use and not use in this replay?
Yeah, so this is one that you see line to gain and also in the goal line. It's what we call a classic double action. You see the knee go down and then they extend the ball forward. So usually when the knee touches, the ball is just coming out. They're just starting to bring it out from where they normally carry it and up to the chest and head and then extend it even further out in front of the body. So usually that ball is somewhere between the chest and the head when the knee actually goes down. This is different than last week when we had that Superman dive. This is a knee and then they extend the ball after the knee goes down. So more often than not when you see this double action, uh, it's a lot shorter. The proper marking would be shorter than what we often give them. It's kind of like when a quarterback or a runner will slide feet first. Usually we're off by a half a yard, if not a yard. And that's often the case with the double action like this. And then like we talked about last week, you know, the we're not down the line. So in this case, everything is pushing the location of the ball further back on this play. But you can see number 43's body or helmet is in the way of where the ball is. So, I mean, there's really nothing we could do with this play other than make it stand. So it would stand whether it's marked short, it would stand if it's marked as a first down in replay.
Yeah. So coaches, when you're talking to your staff who's looking at the replay, it has to be clear, indisputable evidence. And if you see this number 43 in the way of the ball at the most crucial time, that you got to give that information to your head coach to help make the final decision of throwing the red flag and not throwing the red flag. As Monty said, this would go stands as called. Line of scrimmage officials, when coming onto the field, try to match up with each other before you come walking onto the field, just to send out that definite, you guys are on the same page, either short or yes, they've achieved the line to gain.
And with this being a third down play too, if we can try to get to that line to gain, when we feel that runner is going to be, pushing that line to gain, if we can get there and beat them there and be stationary, then we're going to have a lot better opportunity to make this, a really good spot. Treat that line to gain on a third down play like it's the goal line. And there's nothing wrong with releasing and getting there, before that runner.
Yeah, so at this point, we have a good idea that they're going to challenge the line of gain. This is when you would probably want to move to that line of gain.
Yep.
All right, second clip. Illegal formation on the defense. All right, so we know that when a offense is in scrimmage kick formation with the long snapper, nobody could be within the body frame of that snapper. So, Monty, what is the best way to prevent this foul?
Yeah, so this is actually primary for the umpire. This is part of their pre-snap routine on any field goal or try. So the umpire should be over there and telling number 11 right now that he's got to move. He's got to move out and get outside that frame. So, I believe we had a supplemental official as an umpire here, and that's great. He did a great job, but it's probably not something that he's quite as familiar with. But yeah, this should be your pre-snap routine that you're getting that guy out of there, and then you want to move out a little bit. The umpire is probably too wide, and the side judge is definitely too far in on this. Umpire, remember, you are primary for a snap infraction. So you have to be in a location where you can see the ball to see if we have a snap infraction. And side judges, you should be just where, like, lined up even with where a tight end would normally be. So this is one that we can easily prevent.
All right. And then we do have another play later on that has to do with leverage, but this is a good look. It is legal for number 11 to push off the opponent. He just can't start in that snapper's body frame. All right, going to the next clip. Interference discussion. Two players playing the ball. Contact will happen. And sometimes the contact looks so bad. How did these players get down to the ground? And it's incidental contact, tangle, untangle. So we'll let it play through and have Monty talk about what he's looking at and looking for to determine illegal contact versus incidental.
Yeah, so we always get coaches and fans especially who, when a receiver goes down, they want to foul every time. And that's simply not the case often. So in this case, it's kind of skipping a little bit, but the feet get tangled. And here's your rule for when you have a foul and when you do not have a foul when feet get tangled. If both the defender and the receiver are looking back for the ball and their feet get tangled, no foul. If both the receiver and the defender, if neither are looking back for the ball, you have no foul. So right there, you can see that defender and the receiver, they're both looking back. So if their feet get tangled, one of them goes down, they both go down, we're not going to have a foul. The only way we have a foul with feet entanglement is that the receiver is looking back for the ball and the defender is not. And then if their feet get tangled, then we do have defensive pass interference. So this was a good job of not calling defensive pass interference.
Yeah, and the reason for that tangle, untangle, who are you going to call the foul on? Both players have their feet tangled. It's not one player initiating that illegal contact.
Yeah, and I've never seen a guy in full speed purposely trip somebody. That's just it really doesn't happen. So we do have a very specific guideline on feet entanglement.
So the next play we have illegal touching. I will say the first time I saw this, I didn't understand why there was illegal touching. But then when we get to the end zone angle, we're going to talk about the tight end and philosophies of when we can make a formation legal and when the offense has to make things clearly correct. One receiver off, two receiver off. This quarterback is in the backfield. That's three. This receiver we're going to put on, he's covering up a lineman. So what is in question is the tight end. So let's take a look at how he's standing. He is not clearly in the backfield. So when tight ends are in question, are they on? Are they off? Coaches, you have to have that tight end clearly show the officials that they are off and want to be a back. So, Monty, what have you been taught of hiding out that tight end and that threshold of putting a blade of grass in between receivers versus tight ends?
Yeah, so we want to make formations legal, but offenses are trying to disguise this. So with receivers, we talk about the blade of grass theory, and we're gonna, if we can put a blade of grass between them, we're gonna make it legal. With the tight end, it's a little different because especially when they're down in a 3-point stance. If the tight end's down in a 3-point stance, he probably needs his the front of his feet to be clearly behind the back foot of that tackle who he's next to. That would be enough of a distance that everyone would clearly know he's in the backfield. Then if he's in a 2-point stance, Iowa's a team that does that a lot with their tight ends. If they're in a 2-point stance, they wouldn't have to be probably quite as far back, but they definitely can't have their feet lined up with the tackle, which is pretty much what you see in this case. Drops back like he's gonna, be in pass protection and does a little block and then he releases. So it's, yeah, very deceiving play by the offense, which if they want to have that deception, they need to make a legal formation out of it.
Yep, so here we see clearly blocks, even looking like a lineman there, covered up, interior lineman touches the pass. And this is a 5-yard penalty from the previous spot, loss of down. So good job by the crew for getting this correctly ruled.
Yeah, remember, as an officiating crew, there's a difference between this illegal touching and illegal touching of a receiver who was eligible to start the play and maybe goes out of bounds and comes back in and illegally touches the ball, because that one is a loss of down at the previous spot. The rule put into place, I think last year or maybe 2 years ago, was if he's originally ineligible, then it's a 5-yard penalty from the previous spot and also loss of down. So 5-yard difference there that we need to make sure we know the difference between.
Yes, sir. All right, we had a couple plays where the crew got together and picked up the flag. All right, so this is going to be a defensive pass interference call on the field. And sort of what information would you have, Monty, as we see this play, to you to bring in information to your partner to pick it up?
Yeah, so first of all, I'm not going to come into to one of my crewmates unless I'm really, really certain of what I saw. If I have doubt in what I saw, I'm not going to come in and talk to him about, picking up a flag. It's got to be where I see his flag come out, and in my opinion, I'm 100% sure that we do not have a foul, and I know why as well. So when you do so, you want to come in, and this is what both the deep wings came in to this back judge, and both of them said, you know, yeah, I've got that receiver or that defender turning, looking at the ball, that entire time. And therefore, if there's some contact, you need something very, very overt if they're both looking back. Even if they're, we talked about feet entanglement already, would not be a foul, but hand fighting, you get a lot of hand fighting in these situations. You get body bumping into each other and so on. And none of that is a foul if they're both looking back. You need a distinct arm grab or arm bar, something like that, for that restriction to rise to the level of DPI when they're both looking back. And we just don't have that. So, yeah, come in and say, why you have this as not being a foul. And then the calling official, it's up to him if he decides that he is in agreement and picks up the flag. And I've had it happen a few times. And when they come into me and they say what they have, if I have doubt in what I saw and, thinking, maybe I didn't see it so well, then I'm going to obviously pick it up. But it is the final decision rests on the calling official. But if they come in and they're very adamant, if you have doubt, pick it up. If you have no doubt in what you saw from your angle, then you can stick with it as well. But this was a very good flag. Both the flag pickups we had this week were excellent jobs of picking up the flag. And I don't think we do it enough. And those are two great examples of when we need to.
And another comment that was put into Quick Ref was, how much are we going to allow coaches on the field? So we have a flag against the white team. The white team's coach is going to be coming onto the field to share his opinion on the decision as well. And I put in here officials farthest away from the action. Be aware of the coach's location and try to prevent the coach from coming onto the field, get their attention, walk them back to the sideline, and have the conversation with the coach on the sideline. If they don't take your direction to come back to the sideline, that's where you could use your sideline warning. If they are arguing at officials in the middle of the field, you can throw an unsportsmanlike conduct. But let's be aware a play just went against them, understand what they're feeling, work with them to get them back to the sideline and to diffuse the situation and give them information that you're getting on the 020 from your crew.
Yeah, just get to them quick and like we said, walk them back to the sideline. Just say, hey, coach, go back to the sideline with me and I'll tell you you know, what what their judgment was.
All right, a play that we don't see all the time. We had a surprise onside kick last week. This week we have a planned onside kick. So what we put here is both teams are playing onside kick here. We should have 6 officials in the box. When we have that information, we have 6 officials in the box. Monty, what do you talk to with your fellow sideline officials of who's watching what and responsible for what?
Yeah, so in this play, if I remember right, we were late in the game, I think between 4 and 3 minutes maybe, and it was a 3-score game. So the crew thought that, maybe they would not kick an onside with it being a 3-score game. But one thing to think about is if you have doubt, go 6 in the box. We're better off with 6 in the box and they kick it deep than we are if we have 4, only our normal 4 up there and they kick onside. And when Sean and I were talking about this play earlier today, he mentioned when both teams are lined up like this for an obvious onside, just they'll have those short wings be running up and just delay that ready for play. And let's get 6 guys in the box and then let's blow it in and then we can better officiate it. But when we do have 6 in the box, we do want to communicate with our H and our L when they come up and remind them, hey, help out on that ball if it's kicked into the ground. And really the way to think about it is kind of like a TT. So if the ball is kicked towards you, you have touching. So touch toward starts with T, touching starts with T. So just remember TT. If it's coming towards you, you've got touching responsibilities as your primary. Not that you can't help with blocking, but if it's kicked away from you, you are more primary on blocking. And one thing I say out loud before every kick is, like in this case, I'd say white can't touch, white can't block. So I'm thinking to myself that if that white team touches the ball before it goes 10 yards, I'm going to throw a beanbag. If they block team B before the ball goes 10 yards, I'm going to throw my flag for a foul for an illegal block. So that's the conversations you want to be having and the thought processes that you want running through your head on these. And then also winding the clock. So I didn't look at this yet to see what we did if we had somebody wind the clock. So we do have touching right there, and then he goes down, he muffs it. So I see a kill, but remember we need to wind that clock and then kill it. Somebody, anybody, any of the guys up there can do that. And in this case, we need at least 1 second to come off the clock. So we should have written down what our time was before the kick. And we need to make sure that after this, that we, in this case, probably have 2, maybe 3 seconds that came off the clock, but a minimum of 1 if it's not a fair catch or, fielded while he's on the ground.
So a couple reminders. A pop-up kick can be fair caught. It looks like the kicker's trying to do a pop-up kick. So had he successfully hit that ball directly into the ground, high into the air, anybody on that receiving can give a fair catch signal. And then the other thing, we turn into a glass plane on an onside kick. So don't be downfield, be straddling that line. Make sure everybody is behind that restraining line until that ball is kicked, minus the kicker.
Yeah, we actually want to straddle that line every single kickoff, back judge and umpire. And it looks like he might be there. It's kind of hard to tell. It looks like his head is probably straddling that line. So, yeah, and if they break that pane, then we've got we got to have a flag for offside on the kicking team.
All right, moving to we're going to have a ball carrier sliding feet first. Ball is dead, late hit, and then some talking about some tips of dead ball officiating of preventing escalation. And when there is some response, what level of threshold is needed for us to foul both teams versus just the person and team that instigated the situation?
Yeah, this is an interesting play. I mean, this runner goes down and this hit comes in, pretty late. It's obvious he's down. The hit comes in. It's a little jerky there. If you go a little slower, we'll get a better look at it. So we've definitely have a foul for a late hit, and this would be a dead ball foul. When we have one that's this late, and especially on the quarterback, we know that his linemen are going to come to his rescue. So when they come in and they do this push here, we want to try to only flag the instigator if possible. So if we got a good push, a good strong push, even maybe even knocks the guy down, we're still okay with that flag just being on the instigator. In this case, the red team. Here you see a good look at how late it is. And when we're going to flag both teams, both players, is if it rises to a higher level. So let's say that one of those linemen runs from 5 or 10 yards and just blows up this guy like a big blindside block type of hit. That's when you gotta flag him as well. Obviously, if they do anything that would warrant an ejection, so we know that spitting is an automatic ejection. Usually, they wouldn't do that in this case, but a punch, a kick, those are things that are automatic ejections. You have to flag the second act then. But if it's not one of those, we want to be able to apply a penalty against the really team that started this whole thing, if at all possible. So if we can just flag the one guy, that's the best thing we can do.
And then this is a supervisor note. Once we have that situation happen, we want to make those mental notes of what players were involved in that scuffle. All right, so know your personnel. So that way, when those players who have already got after each other a little bit early in the game, if they're just hanging around away from the ball, we're dead ball officiating, and boom, a helmet is off. All right, how did that helmet come off? Was it the same player? All right, so just be aware of when that type of situation happens in a game, what players were involved. Continue to officiate where those players are on the field so we don't miss continued actions that could incite the opponent. All right, so this, not saying this was intentional or not, but we definitely need to have good eyes on it so we know if it was incidental or intentional. Because in this one, helmet comes off, this player has to come out. So we want to be definitely aware and know if it was incidental, or if we thought it was intentional, illegal hands to the face or face mask, and that player gets to stay in now. All right, moving on to the next play. We talked about leveraging a little bit before. When can a player leverage themselves? When can they not? All right, so as we play this, this is going to wind up being into a block field goal, and the end zone angle is going to show a much better view of this leverage, and we'll come back to that angle here for another part of the play. But those are the two players we're going to be looking at. We'll let it play out and have Monty explain what he's looking for when it comes to leveraging.
Yeah, so we get a lot of training, as a side judge on leaping and leverage, and we know that we don't have leaping in this case. The only two that can leap would be those guys standing right next to the umpire and the side judge. Those are the two who I should say cannot leap. The guys on line of scrimmage could, but leverage is a whole different animal. So leverage is when you're on the line of scrimmage, and like Sean said before, you can leapfrog the guy like we used to play when we were little kids. You can put both hands on one guy, hands on two different guys, and use that to propel yourself over the top of them through that gap or right over the top of them even, and try to block that kick. What you can't do is you can't end up with your knees or feet on the defender or on the opponent, I should say, and then use that to try to gain more leverage. And in this case, we don't have that. He leapfrogs through the gap. We don't end up with the knees on the back or the feet on the back. And so, this would not be a foul for leverage. It's one of those, you'll see it when you see it, you'll know it. Sometimes what happens is I had this happen at Nebraska last year, 2 years ago, and the guy goes up to leapfrog him, and then the lineman stands up and he ends up with his knees on his back, and then he tries to propel himself up, from the guy's back with his knees, and that's what makes it leverage.
So also at the end of this play, you see the referee not get sucked in, stay back, and he sees this illegal blindside block on an opponent. All right, so this was a good example of not just staying locked in on the ball carrier, but actually opening up the vision to not miss this foul for illegal blindside block. And Monty, you want to talk about the penalty enforcement on this one when it comes to where would this penalty have been enforced?
Yeah, this is an interesting one because when I was watching it, I'm like, okay, who had the blindside block? Because really, in a play like this, it could be either team. We got a loose ball, so we don't know who's going to blindside block who necessarily. And this is a blindside block by the offense, and it occurs behind line of scrimmage. So it would be easy to kind of get tricked into this and thinking that, oh, well, the defense, is going to get the ball because it was fourth down and they didn't make the line to gain, and we got a foul by the offense and tack 15 yards on, but we got to go back to our basics of penalty enforcement. This is a live ball foul by the team in possession behind the basic spot. So our only enforcement of this penalty is the previous spot, and we would have to replay the down. So obviously, team B doesn't want, they're going to want the ball. So they would have to decline this penalty. And I was really happy when I went on and looked at the next play of this game to see that, the crew did a great job of enforcing that properly, because it's a little trickier than most in this situation.
So another correct call and correct penalty enforcement. Good job by the officiating crew there. So here is an example of a crackback illegal blindside block. This wide receiver is clearly outside the defensive player's vision, and he comes back in outside the vision and just forcefully decleats the opponent. And really, I think the offense is lucky they didn't lose a lineman's leg with the final result of this block.
Yeah, this was thrown by the was it the line judge, I think.
Yes, line judge.
Yeah. And deep guys, we have got to get this. I mean, The back judge is definitely at the top of the screen with we got quads over there. But this, as a field judge here, this is your initial responsibility. And that's your key. So when he goes back to the inside, I mean, I'm just loving it when I see this because it's like that's the easiest foul I'm gonna get all year. And it's a better pick, it's a really good pickup by the line judge. But it's one that uh the deep official 100% needs to be on this. And I don't think that this has transitioned enough to a front side that the referee would be there yet. It's a little jumpy. Yeah, it's hard to see what happens there on that play, but it happens pretty quick, and I don't think the referee would have transitioned to see that yet. But the deep official 100% should. It's really a good pickup by the line judge.
Yeah. And then officials, remember when you do throw the flag, I know it's so hard, but keep officiating the play. Get that dead ball spot, get the forward progress spot every single time. It doesn't matter on this play, but there's going to be other plays that that spot does matter.
Yeah, even if we're not going to enforce this, we're not going to enforce this from the spot of this foul because it's behind the line of scrimmage, but we need the proper dead ball spot on every play. And we need to have that held by somebody, even if we're going to enforce it from a different spot.
And then we're going to end this training tape with an 8. So 8s are great when it comes to officiating. We have 4th and 3 at the 8:46, and there was some type, we had an observer at this game, and they asked the question, why did the offense get the ball back here? Well, there's one number 3 on the field during the play, and then here's the second number 3 wearing the same number on the same play. So players cannot be wearing the same number on the same play, and if they do, it's a special penalty enforcement, 5-yard penalty from the previous spot, which resulted in a first down. So, Monty, what plays in your experience have you had this call, and what did you have to get the call right? Did you get help from crewmates, from coaches, from players?
Yeah, I had it 3 times in probably the last 5 years. And one time we got help from replay, and the other 2 times we had the coaches from the opposing team, you know, get a hold of one of us and say, "Hey, there's two number threes out there. There's two number threes out there." There's been a couple other times when it's been noticed just by the official themselves, and that's a great get. There's just so many other things we're thinking about that a lot of times we don't see that, but often it's coming from the coaching staff, and it's no different than if somebody, a coach or a player is yelling, "Hey, there's 12 guys out there. There's 12 guys out there." And then we kind of figure it out. It's no different. We want to get it right. So
And then I will say, as we have alternate official spots in the GPAC, we had an alternate official a few years ago in a playoff game get a numbering play like this. So alternate officials, if you're out there in the field, you see two numbers, get on the 020 and say two number threes. And another thing on this is what we need outside the snapper's body frame. So both of these players are outside the body frame, and umpire did a good job pre-snap there.
this is one of those weird ones too that it's not a PSK foul. Even though it's a foul by the defense during a kick play, it's got a special enforcement that states in the penalty enforcement for this foul that it's a previous spot foul. That being said, if it would be on the kicking team, then the foul that says all fouls except for kick catch interference, by the kicking team can be enforced from the previous spot or the succeeding dead ball spot. The tack on of a K foul that would trump this previous spot ruling if it was K. But with team R or team B, I should say, there's, it's a previous spot enforcement. It's not PSK.
Well said. Well, those were our training tape plays for week 4. Monty, once again, thank you for joining us this week. Look forward to watching you work on the field during the weekend. And then coming back together next week to take a look at Week 5 plays. So officials, until next week, travel safe, have fun, work hard, and remember, you're only as good as your last call.